What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
Over. What a painful season. And the playoffs seem to be going okay in the first round, but no. Total butt whoopage by Giannis, the Greek Freak, and the Milwaukee Bucks. And John, you and I talked even before we came on. It's like, do we even want to talk about this? Like, it's so divisive. It's really frustrating. The playoffs went just like the season did. You know, you got your hopes up, and then they came down really fast. And I would say, honestly, the turning point for me, and you can go back to my Twitter comments and see just how much of a voracious turning point it really was. But the officiating in Game 3, I didn't act any better than the players did. My response to it was pretty poor. But I also think that, you know, it also brought out the worst from the regular season in the team. And this is why we know the foundation of culture, you know, and collaboration just wasn't there on this club. It was a divided locker room. We'll obviously talk about Rozier's comments, and we are going to get to the draft lottery, but we can't get to any of that until we put this season to rest and take a look back at the postseason. And that's really what I saw was Game 3 was really a turning point. And, you know, we'll get into the Kyrie discussion too, I'm sure, just because, and maybe that's part of this, but obviously, you know, I don't think I've seen, and I tweeted this out, I don't think I've seen the Celtics fan base be this divided since the Antoine Walker trade, and not over a player. There's been some, you know, interesting moments and differences in opinions amongst but this one is divisive. People are literally getting upset about this.
Yeah, and I saw you. You know, when you tweeted that, I thought that was a really good call on your part, because I agree. This is the division. There is a stark line right now, and I think maybe some of the comments Terry Rozier made to ESPN on ESPN's airwaves here on Tuesday may soften some of that, and I think time will soften some of that. But you're absolutely right. This was uncharacteristic of every Brad Stevens team, every Doc Rivers team. I mean, this was a laydown job in games 3, 4, and 5. It was, you know, probably one of the more, and arguably Game 2, I suppose, the blowout that they barely came back on. It was one of the more dispiriting events of Celtics fandom, you know, and folks who go back to 83.
I was going to say, since you and I did this, right?
Absolutely.
Like, but since you and I have started this show, I think it's been
never this bad.
Not quite 15 years, but we're coming up on 15 years of live broadcasting and podcasting over the internet of the Boston Celtics. And we didn't even get started until after that Antoine Walker trade. It was right after. What really juiced us into this was, hey, Danny Ainge is coming on board. This could be a real shift in direction for the organization. We think they're headed, you know, towards something positive. And then that trade, and that was the fuel that ignited so much Celtics interest, and really that whole debate. And everybody's saying, wait a second, look at the new players that are coming in. And it's similar in some ways to what we're seeing now, but not the same at all. And when they traded Antoine Walker, I mean, I think we were doing a show within, you know, 18 months, if not sooner than that, after that trade, because of the discussion it generated from that divisive scenario amongst the fan base. And and regular media didn't want to talk about the team then. Obviously they do now, and Kyrie is a big part of that. But yeah, since then, I don't think in the history of Celtics Stuff Live we've gone through this divisive of a fan base around the team and the players.
And even then, though, it wasn't even so much about the team as much as it was about a player. I mean, I think that certainly there were bad times. The Patino years weren't good. You know, ML Carr, and I mean, obviously the death of Reggie Lewis. But in terms of a team, a disliked team, and even broader than Kyrie Irving and the divide that he's created, the team, and going back to the '83 team, perhaps that got swept by the Bucks. Again, that was a team. It wasn't about ability. It was about mental makeup and a will to fight. And that's why, you know, so much of what we're going to talk about here over the next 6 to 8 to 12 weeks of how this team shakes out for the 2020 season and beyond probably is so much about mental makeup, and it's not about what they're capable of doing on the floor. It's a question of what their mindset is, how that's triggered and how that's angled towards a positive result and a collective effort. And what we saw in games 2 through 5 against the Bucks was probably the least team-centered approach. And in fact, Giannis said today they knew if they even losing game 1 to the Celtics, they never felt like they had to worry. They would worry about Toronto, because they knew that they were not facing a tough-minded team. And
That's
as you said,
horrendous. That
it's
is a
terrible.
real statement, right? Not to mention the Bucks players in the locker room, leaking out stuff, about the Celtics and, just how Kyrie, handled himself on the floor and being upset about the officiating. And believe me, I was upset too.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of reports that Kyrie does have pretty gigantic mood swings and tends to hang his head. And I would say that bore out 100% on the floor from the standpoint of, he said after game 2, I know how to make the right reads and I need to make the right reads. The problem with Kyrie is he committed to making the right reads in the next 3 games, but only for short periods of time. If the other players' shots didn't fall, he gave up on them. The problem is he continued to shoot just as poorly. And the whole thing, that was bad leadership. That's where I think people are frustrated with Kyrie, and he definitely did not come as promised. I won't say as advertised, but as promised. What he said he was going to be, for this team in terms of being a leader, etc. His hanging his head and easily falling into that trap of, oh well, if you guys aren't going to hit the shots, I'll take it upon myself.
Right.
Was really it was a poor display. Now he is 26. And plenty of players fall into that trap and rebound and become great players. And there's plenty of time for that to happen. And he will probably find that way. And he'll be a completely different player 6 years from now at the age of 32. And maybe he'll be in LA with LeBron, or maybe he'll be in New York with Kevin Durant, or maybe he'll be in Boston Green. But he's still got some maturing to do. And that's what I mean about him not coming as promised.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, the knives have been out for Kyrie Irving before Game 5. I mean, really after Game 4, there was a dead man walking sense around the team, and this was a team that was ready to lay down at that point, and that's leadership.
Follow the leader, right? I mean,
yeah.
If you want to take that mantle, that's great. But,
Mhm.
everybody followed your lead then. You
Ye-
said, this
yep.
is me. And so the results of the team directly are, relating
Right.
to the way that you led them.
So
And
and
does
that's
it go on Brad too? That's the real
well,
question.
well, that's I was kind of going there, because to me this is all about the mindset, right? And before going to Brad, you know, is this something that he can come out of? And I think that's not a question we want to answer right now on the show, but you look at where the 2018 Celtics were, and the 2018 Celtics with Kyrie Irving were, and it was a very different place. And so you have to look at all of those, everything that went into what made this team what it is, and try to figure out, is Kyrie Irving that person? Is that who he is permanently? Or were there a confluence of factors?